The Bully Girl Magazine podcast is your dog-eared audio destination, bookmarking the most compelling tales and insights from the vast canine universe. While we passionately dive into the world of bully breeds, dispelling myths, offering training tips, and discussing breed standards, our scope isn't limited. We cast our net wide to encompass a diverse range of dog breeds, ensuring no tale is left untold. Enhanced by expert interviews and inspiring stories, this podcast is a beacon for responsible ownership and breed education. It's where bully breed enthusiasts meet the broader dog-loving community, fostering unity, understanding, and shared joy in every bark and wag. So whether you're out walking your dog or listening at home, be sure to enjoy the show and keep coming back. Hi, I'm Lisa Davis. So glad you're listening to the Bully Girl Magazine podcast. We are looking at the fantastic Haley and her dog Bam from KP Bullyz in Atoka, Oklahoma. And I'm just so thrilled to have you on. Your dog is so beautiful. Tell us
Thank
about
you.
him.
He is 9 weeks old.
Uh-huh.
He is from, this is actually one of my first exotic litter that I've
Really?
had. So he is the first.
Oh,
Because I have standard exotics now.
yeah.
He is a grand champion Bruce Banner's son.
Wow.
So he is the next grand champion in the making.
Woohoo! Now, for people who are new, what does it mean to be an exotic? I thought he was, is he an American bully
So
exotic?
exotics are their own breed, so to speak.
Okay.
In bullies, there's different classes.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes an exotic literally, and I say this openly, so exotic is new. It's very new. And
Right.
it's a look. It's not even anything else the dog has. It's just a look. They'll have
Okay.
more, like he's still young, so it'll come in, but they have more extreme faces. They kind of have like that bulldog wrinkle. Just kind of more, it's in the features. They have more of an exotic look. Um, I like to classify mine as cleaner exotics.
Hmm.
You've seen the little dogs with like the weird bowed out legs and
Yeah.
the people, same dog, just a little bit better structurally.
Right.
And that was the goal, and that is the continued goal with these guys.
Yeah, that structure is so important. Now, I'm going to jump right in with the first couple of questions that I ask every guest is, does your dog or dogs do anything funny, different, unique?
So one of my males, Henry, whenever it's time to go outside, he'll literally just sit and he'll spin circles. And I don't mean just like chasing your tail, like it's like front and back. Like he looks like a hula hoop coming back and forth. And he'll do it until you get him outside. Like we're trying to watch TV and you're like, Henry, and he's just going. He's like, I gotta go outside.
That is so adorable. Now, the next question is two parts. When did your love of dogs begin? And then when did your love of bully breeds begin?
So my love of dogs began at a really, really young age. I'm a generational breeder. My grandparents raised dogs for 38 years. So I literally grew up in a kennel. Like I tell everybody, I'm like, man, I was born in a kennel. Like, so my love for dogs started there because I didn't have the traditional childhood, like a lot of weekends with my friends and stuff like that. And that's okay. I'm really close with my family.
Yeah.
But it was spent at home. I'm like, no, I can't this weekend. We're expecting puppies. I told my grandparents I was going to sleep out there, to make sure everybody's okay.
Aw.
Um, and they raised different working breeds. Labs were a big one. We had labs for many, many years. So my love for them started there. My love for, I want to say bull breeds in general.
Right.
That started really young too. When I saw my first pit bull, and I was just like, oh, I love this dog because I like a masculine dog. Like I like Malinois, Shepherds, Rottweilers.
Yeah.
The scarier, the more I'm going to love it. Like, and so that was my thing with pit bulls. I was like, they just look so. When you see them, they do have that masculine energy, but they're just the sweetest dogs.
Oh, they are.
And then when I met my first American bully, I was like, it's even scarier, but it's even sweeter. And I fell in love with them since then. And it was about 2012 when I got my first bully.
Wow. So was it neat to kind of know what you were going to be doing when you were a grown up, like to have this idea already?
Right. So the crazy thing is, so I actually had Great Danes for a while, and that's what I raised originally. I had Great Danes too my whole life. So I had Great Danes. My first bully I got was just a pet. And then I really started researching. I started meeting other breeders. Started really, because I wanted to, I was like, if I'm going to get further in this, I want to establish relationships, I want to, I want to know more about these dogs than just what they look like. So it
Yeah.
was a whole lot of research and trying to find the right breeder. But I think in my mind as a kid, I always knew that I would have some type of dog that I would raise. I just didn't, I didn't know I'd go this deep.
Well, I'm glad that you are because I've had the pleasure of speaking to you prior, and you're just so devoted and dedicated, and it's wonderful.
Thank
Talk to us
you.
about the testing that your dogs go through.
So we do, I do, Embark is my main one. I do a couple others that test for certain genetic things. But that's my first thing. Every dog that I have is always embarked or genetically tested in general. That way I know if they're carriers of anything, anything that I can prevent. And then I also know what their colors are. I'm just starting into OFA because a lot of my dogs are just now at the age where they can get the testing done. So
Sure.
basically, it's just the main anatomies of a dog, which is your
Oh,
hips,
okay.
your patellas, which is your knees for us, your elbows, even the eyes, their eyesights, um, your cardiac, just to make sure that I mean all the way around you have a healthy longevity dog. Because these X-rays at 2 years old, if your dog is already showing signs of hip dysplasia, that dog probably shouldn't be bred. And
Yes.
that's what the OFA is going to show you. It's also going to show you just the longevity of those joints in your dog.
Oh, that's really
Um,
important. Yeah, my Benji lab, my lab Benji, I'll get this right, has terrible has terrible arthritis, and it's really hard. I mean, he's almost 10, so it's not
right,
surprising. But I
right.
was telling my husband, we got to find a carpenter or somebody that could build the ramp because we have these steep steps going from our deck to our backyard. And the other night he slipped, and I was like, "This is not okay." So anybody listening, if you're a carpenter, follow
Right.
me
You're like, hey, you're like, call me, please. Like,
because I got one of these ramps, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to stay. I don't know. That's a whole nother subject. But at any rate, let's talk about your socialization. I love that you use a puppy culture technique and also something called early neurological stimulation, ENS. Talk to us about these.
so I started implementing that actually after a friend of mine turned me on to the puppy culture, and she was like, "You have to watch these. I think you'll really enjoy them." And I did. And then when I started looking more in depth into it, I realized really how important that is for a solid foundation, for just a good start and a good confident puppy. Um,
Right.
it was actually something that they designed, especially ENS for military dogs, because
Oh,
those puppies are bred and born, that's what they're going to do.
oh
So
yeah.
they did start that for them, and it's early mental stimulation,
Mm,
and it makes for a more confident puppy, and that sort of thing. And that's what my goal is to achieve, for longevity when my puppies leave.
right.
New places, all puppies are they're scared and nervous, but I want them to be more confident when they go into a house. That when they walk in, they're like, "Hey, I'm home." And I enjoyed that. And I have noticed a really big difference from when I didn't do it to now
Right.
actually implementing that, with every litter. It's crazy to see the actual different shifts in confidence and personalities and such.
Oh, that's so cool. And I understand that you take a Q-tip and you like
So
run it
yeah,
along
so you take
different.
a
Yeah, tell
Q-tip.
us about
So
that.
their first 5 days of age, you're starting them. You take a Q-tip. You start touching in between each pad. You're holding them at different angles. Getting them used to that. And as the weeks go on, and I implement a little bit more. So by 4 to 5 weeks, when their ears are opening and they're actually starting to actually hear, I will set little Bluetooth speakers in their puppy pen, let them actually hear different sounds, like cars honking, just regular
Yeah.
everyday stuff. And you will notice that those puppies that actually have had that at 10 weeks old, they're not cowering, at everything. They're more confident. I mean, I've had people with 10-week-old puppies walking down the street in New York and their puppies not even batting an eyelash because they're like, I've been listening to this my whole life. Like, this is fine.
That is so smart. The other thing you do that's great is you get your children involved with the
Yes, my
socialization.
children
Yeah.
are a big help. If you have rowdy boys, they are a big help, in socializing. And then I also use, my older females. I
Hmm.
rely a lot on my matriarch dogs, to help me just rear
Oh, yeah.
puppies. I do have a lot of really good, they're just pets, but they're just fantastic mother hens. So they do help with a lot of correction, especially when you have big litters.
Yeah.
9 puppies is a lot for a mom to
Oh,
keep up
wow.
with. So we do, I rely heavily on my other females just to, they're extra eyes. They're like the aunts or the grandmas, they're just extra eyes that can help keep up on them, teach them things when mom's not around or maybe she's taking a nap. But I
Yeah.
do rely heavily on them with the litter. Actually, he sleeps with his aunts most of the time. So
And his aunt, isn't one of them a pit bull?
yes, yes.
Oh,
Like no relations at all. They're
yeah.
just everyday, everyday pets. Yeah. My oldest, she's just a spayed pit bull. Best dog I own. Just the sweetest
Mm.
dog. She's fantastic. She is pack leader. Everybody knows if she's outside, they're like, grandma's out here. We can't act up because she's like, no foolishness around me.
And what about your lab? Does your lab help out at all?
So he is not a fan of puppies.
Oh, okay.
He likes when they're about 6 months old. He likes when they're big enough that they can play with him.
Right.
Then he's happy. But at this age, they're running around. They're thinking that he's mom, and he's like, "Get off me!" Like, and so he waits. When they get about 6 months, he's a lot happier, and he plays and all that. He's actually the dog that teaches most of my dogs to swim. So,
Oh, nice.
so
Oh my God, that must be so cute.
yes.
Oh my God, I love that. Now, what is your favorite bloodline?
So that is a 2 to 3 part question. So because
Okay.
there is a big controversy about it right now. Um, I have mostly in my American Bullies, I have Rocco Mania lines. I really always thoroughly love to see Rocco. He's just a big dog, but he was just beautifully, beautifully structured. Um, and I also like Lucky Luciano. Same thing, just a very big chested, beautiful dog. And Rocco's known for a lot of mass. He creates
Mhm.
really heavy dogs. I mean, some of you got Grim, um, you know, uh, like I say that Colossal. I have a Colossal son. Their new one is Juggernaut, and he's just crazy. My personal preference, though, is I have really enjoyed crossing that Lucky blood into the Rocco.
Mhm.
So most of my males, my stud dogs, they're a mix of both. And
Oh,
they've been the perfect outcross for me for what I'm wanting. And next year I'm actually implementing muscle tone into my program. We're not quite there yet, so I say next year, because
yeah.
I really want to be, where I'm wanting to be at on my females. So next year, hopefully, I'm going to be crossing into muscle tone. I'm getting to work with Wade Elliott, so I'm really excited about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, what do your dogs eat?
So I was feeding K9X. I just recently switched to, it's called Acana.
Mhm.
And so I do Acana and raw dog food, and they get it once a day. That's what we do. I
Oh,
can't.
great. And I think the raw was is mostly beef, would you say, or venison?
It is. So it's mostly beef. And then I do with a little bit of mix of venison. It's kind of a sweeter meat.
Yeah.
So they do like that. It's kind of like, when you're like eating something and it's the dessert in the meal.
Yeah.
So they get that. But I do mainly do beef mixtures. I try to stay away from a lot of chicken if I can, because I've noticed a lot of resistancy to chicken,
Hmm.
especially if they're eating it like a whole lot.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I mean, everyone knows who listens that my Blue has so many stomach issues, so he eats ground turkey and squash and peas. Do you find that any of your babies have issues with things that you give them? Is it or just
Food
extra gas?
wise, food wise, no, not generally, but I've pretty much. So long story short, I was a vet tech for many, many years.
Oh,
I got
nice.
to work with a nutritionalist for a while, so that was really, really
Oh,
neat.
nice.
So I did learn a lot of things. So I feel like I did have that upper hand as far as feeding goes. So I never had much of feeding issues or anything like that.
Oh, cool. What did you like most about being a vet tech?
Man, I really actually was enjoyed surgery. And I hate that I say that like I wish nobody had to have surgery on
Of
their dogs,
course.
but being like a surgery tech was probably my favorite thing. Um
Oh,
as far as that goes. And of course puppies. Everybody loves puppies. You saw puppies
oh,
all the time.
oh my gosh.
So
I
it
would
like
love that.
evened out your work day.
Well, it's just nice to hear because about enjoying the surgery because Blue had to have both his back knees done. And we
Oh,
did them back to back. It was
did
a
he have the
long 6 months.
TPLO?
Yeah, thank God he's
Yeah.
mellow though, because if
Gosh.
Benji had to be calm for that long, it wouldn't happen. My last,
Right. And that
but
is
they were
such
so
an
great. Yeah,
gosh,
he
that's
turned out
such an
perfect.
excruciating surgery. The recovery time is I've had an FHO done on a dog, which is the femoral head operation. They
Mhm.
actually take the femoral head off their hip.
Oh my
I had a
gosh.
boxer that we had to do that with, and but the recovery was crazy. I worked with some of the greatest surgeons I've seen, so it's awesome. But I'm telling you, dogs are tough. Like
Yeah, they sure are.
I was like, I've had like minor surgeries, and I'm like, I can't do anything for a week. I'm like,
I'm the biggest baby.
I know. And then my dog's like, I just had my hip replaced, but I'm still gonna run a mile in 2 days. And I'm like, okay.
Now, speaking of running, what kind of exercise do your dogs get?
So I implement a lot of like I have a lot of spring. I have a spring pole that stays up 24/7. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's
Yeah,
basically like
yes.
a bungee cord, that they can bite onto and kind of play. It's really so they can kind of play with themselves and hang on it,
Yes.
and. I do flirt poles, which is just a flag at the end of a line that I can run around the yard with it. We do a lot of swimming, especially in the summertime, because I have two ponds, so they kind of take their pick of where they
Oh,
go.
wow.
Yeah. And then I
So
do have a
nice.
little makeshift thing that I tie onto the back of my Fuller, and I just drive it around, especially when I'm like real tired. I just
Yeah.
drive it around and let them chase it like that.
Jeez.
Um,
Oh, that's a great image.
yeah, so I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'm tired, y'all. I'm like, y'all just gonna run today. That's what we're gonna do. But they have a good time. They pretty much keep themselves entertained. I have a lot of different stuff for them to do when they go outside.
Awesome.
So if there's some days they just want to sunbathe, some days they want to play for 6 hours, and I'm like, okay,
Wow. I envy dogs that fetch. My lab doesn't fetch. She was never taught. And I got him at 19 months. And I had this assumption that retrievers all swim and fetch. Well, he doesn't do either. And I envy those people where they can just throw the ball either with their hand or with that fancy ball thing and throw it. And they just,
right.
I'm like, God, like if you're sick and you just don't have the energy, you can at least just sit in a chair and throw a ball. But nope, I got to get these boys out. So I like
You're
all
like,
these ideas you're talking about.
yes,
And I like the driving one.
yes, those are the best.
That is awesome. Now, walk us through the process of getting a puppy from KP Bullies.
So my process is kind of long. I do a really long puppy questionnaire.
Hmm.
It's also based off, and I do puppy questionnaires before we even discuss
Hmm.
what, what litter or what puppy they're choosing. You have to do my questionnaires first.
Okay.
Um, my biggest thing is my pet homes. There's a lot detailed in that, of like, well, what made you decide on an American Bully? One of the big ones, and a lot of people get mad, but I recently really started implementing it, is are you a homeowner? Because a lot of people will get these dogs in rentals, and then the landlord, they're new, but people still think they're pit bulls. And so a
Right.
lot of people are like, you can't have a pit bull at this property. And I have ran into that a couple times back then, and I was like, and so I started really implementing that. Because I want to make sure my puppies are leaving and they're going to their forever home.
Yeah, I
So
think that's
and I don't want
totally
to set them for
fair.
failure and take a couple steps back.
Right.
But everything's different. I have contracts for my show and breeding prospects, and it also does say because when I'm selling to you as a prospect, I have high hopes that that dog is going to be just that. And if they're
Right.
not, I actually just ran into this last night. I talked to a client. The female, she kind of took a turn, and structurally, she's not really going to make it in the show ring. And sweet
Oh,
dog, he's going to keep her. He's
oh,
like, we're going to keep her.
nice.
He's like, we're just going to spay her. But I am
Yeah.
knocking a bunch of money off for his next puppy that he gets from me, so that we can try to get that show and breeding prospect.
Well, would you say that most people get them to breed themselves, or do a lot of people just want them to get spayed
These
and then just be
days,
their pet?
these days, it's more people wanting them and they're wanting full rights. And I will say, I'm
Okay.
going to set him down just for a second.
Oh, of
I
course.
will say, he is a chunk. He is heavy.
Yeah, you're getting a good
um,
workout during this interview.
yes. I will say one lately, everybody wants full rights. And unfortunately, it's just because that's where we've allowed it to go. Um, I see more people that are just like everything, they're for sale and they come with papers, and I'm like, but should they? I'm like,
Hmm.
really? I'm like, because I've had great show and breeding prospects that I would much rather place in a pet home
Right.
than anything. But I do feel like as a whole community, we have gotten more lenient on that of not actually pet homing.
Right.
I've scrolled actually all last night and I saw multiple puppy ads. Not a single one said pet only. That pet option's there, but so is full
Oh,
rights on every puppy that was in the litter. And I'm like, why? I'm like, I'm like, it's okay to pet home. It is
right.
more than okay. I'm like, because we're still such a new breed. We
Hmm.
should only want to keep the best of the best in the gene pool and continue
Right,
with it. Because when the lesser quality you sell, the lesser quality of the dog as a whole.
right.
And
Yeah,
so I,
and you're so right. And I addressed this with Dave Wilson in a recent interview from the ABKC, and he was talking about that fine line with structure and functionality.
yes,
And if you go too far, even just a little bit over the line, then you got the dog with the hip dysplasia and other
yes.
issues, and that's not fair to the dog.
No, it's not. And you're seeing it more often in young dogs, and it's sad.
Hmm.
And honestly, that could go back 2 generations where their grandma should have never been sold, as full rights, but they did anyways because hey, it was money. And I'm like, at some point we have to understand, that money is an evil thing here. I'm like, and we need
Yeah.
to do better as a community as a whole. Because I've had my fair share of past doings in the back, so I'm not sitting here like I'm a princess, I haven't done anything wrong. I have, so I'm talking to myself too. When I say
Awesome.
as a whole and as a community, we need to really dig deep and strive and just do what's best for the dogs as a whole, because their future depends on it, and our longevity of the breed depends on it.
That's so true. Now, I can guess from context what full rights means, but if you can
Yes.
explain it for people who are new or from
So
the
full
rusty
rights
world.
is when you get your puppy, you have full breeding rights. So you have the
Okay.
right as the owner, you can breed that puppy, and I can't stop you. So you
Hmm.
could take that dog and breed it to whatever, and I cannot stop you from that.
I see. So if they want to make like a lab American Bully mix
Right,
or
right, right.
anything.
And
Okay.
yeah, so I'm very, very particular on my full rights dogs. A lot of times, like I said, I keep a lot of my dogs' chips in my name so that I can always kind of keep up where they're at. If I do sell full rights, anybody can tell you I'll probably gonna message you at least twice a month to see how the dog's turning
Good.
out, and then I'll give my professional opinion. If I see the dog in 8 months and you bought it at full rights, I'll tell you and be like, maybe we should think about pet homing. If you're wanting full rights, we can definitely do that, but let's get something just a little bit better. Um,
Yeah.
but and honestly, it's because I'm just rough. None of my dogs I'm gonna say are like just bottom of the barrel terrible. But I am more of a stickler on what I expect out of them. Because I say it all the time, and if anybody follows me on Facebook, they know one of my main things I always say is we have too many mediocre dogs already. I'm just trying to put the best I can out there, and
Yeah.
that's the goal for myself and my brand at the end of the day.
I really admire that. And it also, I think it's so important because of the misconceptions and stigmas around this
Right,
breed, right? That you have to have your dog, they have to be better. They have to
right,
act better in public. People expect more because they're expecting, something vicious or horrible. And so you've
right,
got to be on top of things in that way too.
right, and we do, and
Yeah,
and I'm not just like I said, I'm not pinpointing any specific person. We
sure.
do need to be more what's the term I'm looking for? More aware, more
Yeah,
self-aware.
right.
There's a term that a lot of us breeders use. It's called kennel blindness.
Oh,
And you'll see some people will comment, they're like, oh, well, that's kennel blind. Really what it is breaking it down. It's when you've been raising dogs and you're getting, a lot of money from them, but you're not actually looking at what you're putting out. You're just seeing the money signs. So in
right.
terms, we say, oh, it's kennel blind.
I see. Yeah, it's really good to be aware of that. And
Right,
I think also to differentiate yourself from, dogs that are sold at pet stores and come from puppy
right,
mills and are in horrible situations where they're
right.
stacked on top of each other,
And
sitting
that
in
is
their
something that's
crap.
also in
And
my contract that I put no puppy
good.
is to be sold to any market, nothing from my lines. If it comes from my yard
Yep.
and 6 generations from now, I see my lines in a puppy store, I still by law can take you to court and I will. I have a very, very strong feeling about that. Like you cannot sell any of my lines at like the flea markets, anything of the
Yeah.
sorts. It has to be, you know, normal online, word of mouth. But I just don't want my dogs to end up in situations in like that. And for my
Oh,
dogs'
no.
generations to come, I don't want them to end up like that.
Of course. Now, If I wanted to get a puppy from you at some point, now I'm in a different state. How does that work? Do you fly with the puppy or do you, how
So
does, no.
I have flight options. I do have a flight nanny that I work with. She's awesome. She'll
Oh,
fly to
cool.
me, get the puppy, and then fly to you with the puppy. That's her
Nice.
carry on.
Nice.
Or I do have a really great ground shipper. He's been fantastic. He's actually bringing me a puppy the end of this month from
Oh,
Illinois. So I'm really excited about that. But he's awesome. He's fast. The only thing, the difference between flight and drive, I feel like flight is it's less time.
right.
Um, but I have noticed that puppies can be a little bit more, um, they don't like it as much. And I'm sure it's because
Yeah.
they're going up in the air and it's a lot of pressure on their poor little ears,
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything like that. So,
Yeah, that is such a problem. I still, when
yes,
I go on a plane, I gotta chew gum. I look like a maniac
I do
because if
too.
I don't,
I'm
my
like,
ears.
and then I'm like hitting my ear and I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah,
Speaking of planes, we spoke the other day and you mentioned there's a show coming up in
there
Chicago, and I
is.
really want to go. And just talk to us about your dogs and dog shows in general.
So I have been showing for 2 years now. I'm 2 years in. Um, I say that like that's attending and showing and everything. I attended them for a little bit before I actually took a dog in the ring because it was a lot to understand.
Mm.
Because I was like, that's how many points? I was like, how do you know? Like it was a lot. It was a lot. But I did. I started showing. My first dog that I took in the ring was my white male. Everybody knows him as Big Lou.
Oh,
He kind of had his own little internet fame for a little while. Um, but he was my first one. It was seriously just even just going and just being part of it. I was like, I was hooked. Not even taking a dog, like I was hooked. I was like, this is just awesome. The atmosphere was incredible. It was so it was so like you were walking into like a family. Like, nobody knew me and but nobody treated me any differently. If I stopped by and asked them questions at their booth, it was, oh, absolutely, come sit down. We'll talk about this. You can see this dog. Everybody was so open. When I started competing, I thought that okay, I'm going to see a different light here. People are going to be mad, and it wasn't. It was, I mean, it was people that I consider family now who live in different states, and I may see them once a year, but we talk all the time. And whether my dog beat theirs or their dog beat mine, it was never any maliciousness or animosity. It was always hugs and high fives and congratulations. You worked so hard for this. I mean, I loved that. I loved that it was a hype thing. Everybody was supporting everybody. And everybody knew how hard it took, to get here. Even stepping in the ring is a big deal. Because that's
I
so
bet.
many eyes on you, so many things that could go wrong in the ring. My biggest fear was tripping and falling. I was like, I'm gonna
Oh
trip and
gosh,
fall down. Like, and so, but anything like that. So it was nice to have a support system of absolute strangers
that
who
sounds amazing.
didn't know me from anywhere, but we're still, actually, I had forgot water for my dogs and we went all the way to Nebraska and I was like, man, and where the venue was, you had to like walk way out to go and get water. And these people next to me heard me talking. And they're like, oh, we have extra. They're like, how about it? They gave me a
Oh,
bunch of water bottles, and that was almost 2 years ago, and I still probably talk to them weekly.
oh, that's
And so
amazing.
it's cool. I've built a lot of really great relationships. But to the Chicago one, so that is BRC Global, which is a registry, and that is going to be their nationals. It is November 17th and 18th, in Chicago, Illinois. So I think it's like Springville or something, but it's basically Chicago. Um,
Nice.
but it's gonna be really fun. It's always fun. I went last year and just had a blast, like a
Oh,
complete blast. You can go and look at, see all these dogs. There's vendors that are out there that make really cool gear for your dogs. There's always great food, great music, and just great company. It's
can't
always been
wait.
a blast. Like that's why I'm going every year because it's a fun time.
It seems so. I wish I could bring my blue, but I have to fly, and I'm not gonna. I'm not
You're
gonna
like, you're like,
make
whoa,
blue.
no, I understand.
Let's talk about mentorship. How important is it to find a mentor, excuse you, when you
Oh
enter
my
the world
gosh.
of breeding dogs?
It's everything. Um, that's probably one of my main things I preach to people when they first get started out is find a mentor. And when I say that, when you're looking for your first dog, you should also take into consideration, you need to look for a breeder that's going to back you your that whole longevity that you have that dog.
Yeah.
You know, my goal was when I bought a dog, because these are pricey dogs, especially really
Oh,
the
yeah.
good, you know, the good bloodlines and all that. Um, so that was my goal. I wanted a good breeder that I could talk to. And, you know, if I had questions, they weren't going to be like, I already got your money. I'm not, you know, I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
Right. Right.
Um, and so, William Stewart is, I would say, was my mentor when I started out. He was who got me into the more extreme dogs. He has a
Mhm.
great program. It's Rosewood Bullies. They also have English and Frenchies, and they're so
Oh.
cute. But
They're so
and even
cute.
now, I bought Lucian, and then I have a male co-owned with them. We've just
Mhm.
kept a great relationship. Anytime I went to Kentucky, they just treated me like family when I was there. His wife Brandy is fantastic, but
Oh,
he's the type
nice.
that even now, and Lucian's almost 2. I can text him, and he's immediately going to respond as fast as he can to answer my
Oh,
question.
wow.
And so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was really really nice to meet him and be able to be part of that, and then move
That's
on and
great.
mentor and talk with other people as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, what would you like to see in 10 years from now in the bully game?
Um, Definitely a better gene pool.
Mhm.
I would like to see more consistency. Um, I would like for you to be able to walk in somewhere and all the dogs semi look the same. Um, because that's the goal for a breed. You know,
Yeah.
that's whatever, you know, that's the whole deal. And so that's what I would like to see. I would like to walk into a building, and you know, there's different heights, and that's fine. But I would like to
Right.
walk into a building where predominantly all the dogs are fit the standard. Right now
Mhm.
you do have, you know, some in between. Most we're getting there. We're knocking on the door of it. And I love that. But you do still have some stragglers that are in between that you're like, I don't know if that's a pit bull or a bully, and I'm really trying to figure it out, you know.
Mhm.
So I do feel like we need to focus on that more, and stay with the bully aspect of what we're supposed to be. And I'd
Yeah.
also like to see less litters. I do feel like
Oh,
that's a big thing. I would like to see less litters being put out and more strategic breeding. I think that there should be a little bit more thought process into what you're breeding, not just this sounds fantastic, I'm going to do it, you know.
yeah. Well, I really admire you. I mean, I bet you're a mentor to people out there.
I have a lot of really good. I hate using the word mentor because like I've been in this for a little while, but I'm also like not, you know, I'm not in this as long as other people. Dogs,
Right.
yes. This breed, no. But I have made a lot of great relationships. I actually have a group chat with some of my closest friends, and they're all from, and it's cool because everybody's from a different state.
Oh,
So you
that's
got
awesome.
Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. I mean, so it's really neat, and you get to see different things, different states, you know, and talk about different programs. But I do feel like those relationships are important,
Yeah.
and it always keeps you honest about what you're doing. You know, especially when you have relationships like that, because you may not see something, but somebody on your outside party is, and they're like, "Hey, do you really think you want to do this because such and such?" And then you're like, "Man, I didn't even see that." You know, thank you for telling me and holding me accountable so that I can move forward.
Yeah. So I think you're just awesome. Now, what do you think about Bully Girl magazine?
I love it. I love it because of the diversity. You know, you touch
Yes, I do
on
love that.
everything from the underdogs to, you know, the big wigs, from ABKC, judges, owners, rescues, authors. You really dabble deep into everything that is dog. You know,
Yes.
it's predominantly bullies, which they're my favorite dogs, so that's
Yeah,
totally
me too.
fine. But you do, you know, you hit every aspect where a lot of these different magazines, you know, unfortunately is, and it's all, you know, higher up people. And I like to hear the underdog stories. You know,
Me too.
I like to hear the little people that are, you know, making a difference one dog at a time. That's nice to hear about. And it's probably some of my favorite stories.
Wow. Well, you are absolutely incredible. And I'm so excited that you came on the show. Was there anything that you wanted to touch on that we didn't touch on? And then I definitely want to get all the ways we can find you.
Um, no, I did just kind of want, I know in the magazine, you know, we had talked about some of my, I guess people that I look up to.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I did want to touch on that. We had talked about it before,
Yeah.
but William Stewart, of course, being one of my first. because he's Lucian's breeder, and I'll forever be thankful for him. They own Rosewood Bullies in Kentucky. Jamie Madeira, who got me started in these little guys, and he's if nobody knows him, I'm telling you, if you have one conversation with him, you're just like, I love this guy. Like, he is just full of life and love, and he doesn't care what you've done. He's like, come to my house and we're gonna eat tacos. Like, he's just we met at a show 3 times, and he was like, I want to call on dogs with you. I was like, you don't even know me. He was like, I do. He said, I can tell. He was like, this is a good thing. He was like, I can tell. And him and his wife have just been, they're fantastic people. Really a breath of fresh air, just in everyday life. And then of course my best friend Kayla, she is the underdog to look out for. Her program is fantastic. I've seen amazing dogs come from there. She just won her first show with her 6-month-old puppy, and she took best puppy out of the whole building. Incredible dogs. She owns Savage Beast. She's somebody to really look out for as the up and coming. Great whelper. She's so knowledgeable. She whelped my litter for me. And she's fantastic all around. Oh, and Jamie, he owns Crazy Faith Bullies. And
nice.
he's on
Okay.
Instagram.
Cool.
But
Well,
and then if
oh, go ahead.
me, you can find me on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's just my name. It's spelled kind of funny. But or you can just type in KP Bullyz and it will pull me up. And then my Instagram is KP Bullyz 2017.
And that's Bullyz, and then Haley
Yes.
is spelled Haili.
It's very fun. It's a very fun way to spell it.
It is. I was like, what? Yeah, I wasn't sure. So I always ask.
Right.
At any rate, this has been fantastic. I absolutely love doing this show. Keep coming back. Tell your friends, tell your family, rate, review, subscribe. Also, be sure to subscribe to Bully Girl Magazine. You can go to www.bgmwarehouse. You can get.com. You can get my, oh, I'm not wearing I thought I was wearing my hat, and so much more. Also, you can download the Bully Girl mobile app, available in Apple and Google Play stores. Follow at Bully Girl Mag, and be sure to follow me at Lisa Davis MPH on TikTok and Instagram. Thanks so much. Keep coming back to Bully Girl Magazine podcast.